Hi there. Today we're working on a 12 by 10 inch canvas with oils, and it's done Alla Prima, so wet into wet. And although it wasn't done in one session, it was two sessions, one on say the Tuesday, and then I went back into it again on the Wednesday. So two short sessions, about 2 hours each. Here's the photographic reference I was using for the painting. So we start off on I've got a grey, pinky grey ground colour on the canvas, which is something I just scraped off the palette at the end of the day a couple of weeks ago. So that's had plenty of time to dry. And now I'm just blocking in the areas with colour after I just a quick outline of the basic shape of what we're looking at, and this is just continuing the blocking. So just using the basic palette which you saw me lay out earlier. It's the same palette as usual, so I've got the titanium white and a warm white, and I've also used the three yellows. I've got a lemon yellow, cadmium yellow and a Rinsey lemon yellow, which I really like. I've got an alizarin crimson, cadmium red, a raw sienna, ultramarine blue, manganese blue, and an ivory black, and there may have been a burnt umber in this palette as well. And I'm using a photograph for my reference. It's a scene which coastline we really like in near to where we live in Cornwall. It's Rinsey Head, very dramatic coastline, and the light on this particular day was quite stunning. So I thought I took a snap on my phone camera and wanted to use this for the painting. And there we are, that's what we're looking at. Obviously I'm changing the colours as I go slightly to suit myself, and build it up as it's a painting rather than strictly copying the photograph. The photograph's there to help me as a guide. So I got that on the laptop to my left, which is what you'll see me glancing down towards, and all my palette, which is a glass palette with all my colours and everything I need, is on the right hand side as I'm right handed. The window which is my main light source is to my left, nice big window, and I've also got an overhead light which is a daylight effect bulb, so that helps as well to light the palette up. I used a variety of brushes, although in this particular painting I probably only used about 3 different brushes. You've got a couple of filberts, which is the like there, that's a filbert, so you've got it's like a flat with the corners rounded off. So there's a couple of filberts and a rigger, which you'll see me use particularly for some of the details in the foam areas. And I think as this painting is now fairly wet, you see, after the initial blocking stage, now I'm starting to use the paint quite thick. So although I have got a medium which I laid out, you saw me lay out earlier in the video, which was stand oil and turps mixed, and low odour turps, which is Gamsol, and I've also got a pot of Gamsol in a dipper which I use for cleaning the brush in between colours. So I'm laying the paint on quite thickly now, with probably no medium added at this point. So it's just the paint out of the tube, and there's plenty of oil already in the paint. So this was particularly important when it's already, the surface is wet that you're painting onto. So like this, in this instance, you just got a fairly light touch and you're just stroking the paint on to the surface of the canvas, and the weave in the canvas grips the paint and the brush. Whereas if I was on board, you'd be a bit more slidey and a bit more difficult to control, but I do like that as well. But I had these canvases, these are what I won in a competition over Christmas time with Taylor handmade canvases, and they're a nice size and they're really good quality canvas. And obviously if the palette knife comes out, you know I need to make corrections generally, and I just like to scrape and scratch away at the paint just to level off a few areas and bring out some texture. This is where the rigger's handy. It's got quite such long bristles. Though it's a very small brush, you can really put some loose brush marks in there. Very handy brush. Not just for fine details and things. You can use it in a very loose way. It's all about getting that atmosphere rather than trying to copy the scene exactly. We're trying to get that sort of feeling that I had when I was there on the day. Now at this stage of the painting, we're tending to just slow down a little bit and just have a little think about where my darks are. I've put the lights in. These are the darks and the shadows which will enhance the luminosity of that foam in the water. And then we're just building up some of the headland there to give it a more 3D look with a variety of colour mixes, sort of earths and violets and greys. And same again, we're just laying on fairly thick paint on top of already very wet paint. So you just got to be careful not to go too gung-ho and push your brush through too hard, and you'll be mixing up everything that's underneath with the colour you're applying at the time. See, the rigger's got these fairly soft bristles, so you can just quite easily stroke the paint across on the top of the wet paint and it doesn't affect what's underneath. This is a case of, so basically what we're doing, we're layering up like you would if you let the paint dry over a couple of weeks and you come back into it again. So we're still layering up, but we've just got to be aware of that wet paint underneath mixing with anything we put on subsequently. So it's quite a fairly difficult technique, but it's really good fun, and it's the sort of technique you would use when you're painting outdoors on plein air, so definitely worth practicing with during the winter time, so you can get yourself ready for going outside painting in the spring and summer when the weather's a bit better. Back in with the palette knife again here, just to make some adjustments. Now just putting a couple of darks in that wave there just to give me an idea of how the water's moving. And here, look, I'm using the homemade Mahl stick, just out of a little batten of wood I've got lying around in the studio, always usually by my feet. I'm resting my hand, so the Mahl stick is resting against the top of the painting or top of the easel, and my right hand is resting against that Mahl stick to steady it, so I can just paint this house in a little bit easier than trying to do it freehand, because my hands, although it's fairly steady, it's not as steady as I would like it to be if I'm trying to put something like that in, especially wet into wet. Now we're just adjusting the ends of the cliff there. The shape wasn't quite right. It's very easy to make corrections to this wet paint. So it's coming along now, and fairly happy with its progress, particularly like the sky and those distant headlands, which you've got Cudden Point. So behind the house, the headland you can see there that's Cudden Point, and we've got St Michael's Mount further past that. This is the fun part for me, the foreground with this brush loaded up with oil paint. I really do enjoy this part, painting onto wet paint with loaded brush. So you're laying wet paint onto wet paint, and sometimes you're pushing in really firmly to drag it through, and the mixes you create are just totally spontaneous. It's just really good fun, this part. You can easily ruin what you've already been doing though for the last 5 or 6 hours. But it's really good fun. And just finding all these colours that work against each other, just to build up a bit of texture and interest in this foreground. Mixing up some nice greens there with cadmium yellow and ivory black mixed together, getting some lovely rich greens there. As always, I tend to fiddle too much and sometimes lose what I've got there, because I'll work back into it again. It's just resisting that temptation to go back in. And just accentuating some of those nice cool whites, which are the sort of surf, and there's always a wave breaking in the middle of the bay there. So this is what we got. This is the photograph that we're using, and there we are. Now I realised now we need to pick out that house, highlight one wall of the house to show just to accentuate which way the sun is coming from. These are basically some small finishing touches now. So you can still be quite random. There's no need to be too careful. It's at the end of the day, it is only a painting. The more random you can get it, and I think that's the effect is better. And there we are. That's what we ended up with, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching. Bye for now.